June 18, 2020, Munich, Germany. Markus Braun, the most celebrated CEO in European tech, stands before cameras and admits the impossible. $2.1 billion simply does not exist. Not stolen, not misplaced, never there. Within 72 hours, a company worth more than Deutsche Bank will be worthless. Its CEO will be in handcuffs. Its COO will vanish into thin air. And the entire German financial establishment will face a question it cannot answer. How did nobody see this coming? Rewind 20 years. Wirecard begins as a humble payment processor, a digital middleman helping online merchants accept credit cards. In the boardroom sits Markus Braun, an Austrian with a PhD in computer science and an unshakable belief that he was building the future of money. His pitch was elegant. As cash dies, Wirecard thrives. Every tap of a card, every online checkout, every digital wallet, Wirecard would be there, invisible, indispensable, taking a fraction of every transaction on Earth. To investors, he promised revolution. To Germany, he promised a tech champion to rival Silicon Valley. To the world, he promised the infrastructure of a cashless future. But that promise was built on something else entirely. By 2018, Wirecard had become Germany's darling. The company processed payments for over 300,000 merchants across 26 currencies. Airlines, grocery chains, pornography websites, online gambling platforms. If money moved digitally, Wirecard wanted a piece. The stock price told the story. From €8 in 2009 to over €190 by September 2018. A 2,300% return. Pension funds piled in. Sovereign wealth funds followed. When Wirecard replaced Commerzbank in Germany's prestigious DAX 30 index, it wasn't just a milestone, it was coronation. Markus Braun became a billionaire on paper. He appeared on magazine covers. He spoke at Davos. German politicians courted him as proof that Europe could compete with American tech giants. SoftBank invested $1 billion. The valuation touched $28 billion, making Wirecard more valuable than Deutsche Bank, Germany's largest lender, more valuable than most of German banking combined. But even as champagne corks popped in Munich, a small team of journalists in London had started asking uncomfortable questions. In early 2019, the Financial Times published a report alleging accounting irregularities in Wirecard's Asian operations. Braun called it an attack. German regulators agreed. They banned short selling of Wirecard stock and opened a criminal investigation, not into the company, but into the journalists. The cracks were appearing, but Germany looked the other way. Here is what was actually happening. Wirecard claimed that roughly half its revenue, over $1 billion annually, came from a network of third-party partners in Asia and the Middle East, payment processors in Dubai, acquiring banks in the Philippines, vast operations serving millions of merchants across emerging markets. None of it was real. The partners were shell companies. The revenue was fabricated. The bank statements proving the cash existed were forged. At the center of this machinery sat one man, Jan Marsalek, Wirecard's chief operating officer, a high school dropout who claimed to speak multiple languages and cultivated relationships with intelligence agencies across the globe. Marsalek was the fixer. When auditors asked questions, he produced documents. When regulators demanded proof, he arranged meetings that never quite happened. When journalists got too close, problems arose. The deception required constant feeding. Every quarter, Wirecard had to show growth, so the fake revenue grew. The imaginary partners multiplied, and the escrow accounts where this phantom cash supposedly sat, they were always overseas, always just out of reach. For years, Wirecard's auditor, Ernst & Young, never once directly verified the $2 billion with the banks that supposedly held it. They accepted documents. They trusted management. They collected $50 million in audit fees over a decade. By 2020, the fiction had grown so large that it had become the company. More than half of Wirecard's reported profits existed only in spreadsheets, and when the world finally demanded proof, there was nothing. Wolfgang Mueller had worked at Siemens for 30 years. When he retired in 2017, he invested his entire pension, €340,000, in Wirecard stock. His financial advisor called it safe, German, regulated, a tech champion. By June 2020, his shares were worth €2,100. He lost everything except the apartment he'd already paid off. He told reporters he no longer opens his mail. Across Germany, ordinary investors, teachers, engineers, small business owners had trusted their savings to a company validated by every institution meant to protect them. The stock was in the DAX. The auditors signed off. The regulators defended it. Who could have known? The employees were victims too. Thousands of workers at Wirecard subsidiaries worldwide, people who processed legitimate payments, lost their jobs overnight. Their stock options, once worth millions collectively, became worthless. Their pensions, partially invested in company stock, evaporated. They woke up one morning working for a fraud they never knew existed. They were just the beginning. In early 2020, KPMG was hired to conduct a special audit. Wirecard executives expected vindication. They got annihilation. KPMG could not verify the existence of the escrow accounts, could not confirm the third-party revenues, could not trace the $2 billion that supposedly sat in trust. The report, released April 28th, was devastating. But it was the next step that ended everything. Ernst & Young finally did what they should have done years earlier. They contacted the banks directly, BDO Unibank in the Philippines, BPI, the institution supposedly holding Wirecard's billions. The response came immediately. These accounts do not exist. These documents are forgeries. We have never held funds for Wirecard. On June 18, 2020, Wirecard admitted that $2.1 billion, representing the majority of its reported cash, probably did not exist. The stock fell 62% in a single day, then 35% more the next. Markus Braun resigned immediately. 3 days later, he was arrested on charges of fraud, market manipulation, and breach of trust. The company filed for insolvency within the week, the first DAX company ever to do so. But Jan Marsalek, the architect, vanished. Last seen in Vienna, then Munich, then a private flight to Minsk. Interpol issued a red notice. Intelligence agencies across Europe began investigating his ties to Russian operatives. He has never been found. Markus Braun went to trial in December 2022. He maintained his innocence, claimed he was deceived by Marsalek, that he never knew the money was missing. In December 2024, the verdict came. Guilty, 8 years in prison, 8.5 million euros in damages, a fortune worth billions. Ernst & Young faces lawsuits totaling billions of euros. They deny negligence. The cases continue. BaFin, Germany's financial regulator, the agency that investigated journalists instead of the fraud, was restructured entirely. Its former chief was banned from the securities industry. Germany passed the FISG Act, expanding audit requirements and regulatory oversight. Whether it's enough remains an open question. Jan Marsalek is still missing. Russian intelligence reportedly gave him a new identity. He may be in Moscow. He may be dead. Nobody knows. Wirecard's former headquarters in Munich is now an empty office building. The payment terminals bearing its logo have been replaced. The name has become a synonym for failure, Not just corporate failure, but institutional failure. The banks trusted the auditors trusted management, the regulators trusted the banks, and everybody trusted the stock price. $2 billion never existed, and for years, nobody wanted to look closely enough to notice. What else aren't we seeing? Subscribe to Empire Omitted, the stories they